This is ILTV on the hour, bringing you the latest stories from Israel and the Middle East in just 5 minutes. I'm Ladar Lazi, and today is day 11 of the war in Israel. So let's get into it. A day after the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, U.S. President Donald Trump is now hinting at regime change in the Islamic State. In social media posts, President Trump questioned the possibility of regime change, saying it's not politically correct to use the term, but the current Iran regime is unable to make Iran great again. So why wouldn't there be regime change? In a separate post, Trump claimed that the U.S. strikes had caused monumental damage to Iran's nuclear sites. He posted, "Obliteration is an accurate term. The biggest damage took place far below ground level," adding the word bullseye. At the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth claimed the U.S. strikes had obliterated Iran's nuclear ambitions and that the strikes should bring them to the negotiating table. He said the attack was intentionally limited to nuclear targets and not aimed at regime change. The U.S. employed 14 bunker buster bombs, more than 24 Tomahawk missiles, and over 125 military aircraft in the operation they named Midnight Hammer. Washington warned Tehran against responding to the strikes and said it should instead return to the negotiating table. The head of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, said the initial assessment is that all three sites, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, sustained extremely severe damage and destruction. Let's hear what he had to say.
This was the largest B-2 operational strike in U.S. history and the second longest B-2 mission ever flown, exceeded only by those in the days following 9/11. Our forces remain on high alert and are fully postured to respond to any Iranian retaliation or proxy attacks, which would be an incredibly poor choice. We will defend ourselves.
Meanwhile, Israel is continuing strikes on Iranian ballistic missile launch sites amid continuing efforts to limit the Iranian ability to fire ballistic missiles at Israel. IDF Chief Eyal Zamir said that following the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, Operation Rising Lion had reached a turning point. The Air Force completed a fresh wave of strikes in Iran with over 15 fighter jets in the Kermanshah area of western Iran. The Air Force said it destroyed several ballistic missile storage and launch sites that were aimed at Israel. IDF Chief Eyal Zamir said that Israel had reached the turning point, and after the U.S. strike, said there are still objectives to complete. Let's take a listen.
אנחנו ביום העשירי של מבצע המקלבי. עד כה אנחנו הבאנו להישגים רבים, ובכלל כך בעיקר לפגיעה משמעותית בתוכנית הגרעין של איראן. הגענו לנקודת מפנה במערכה, לאחר שאתמול בלילה צבא ארצות הברית תקף בצורה קטלנית, מדויקת מאוד ומרשימה את אתרי הגרעין המרכזיים. התקיפה הזאת התאפשרה בזכות מנהיגות אמיצה של שותפינו בארצות הברית ובזכות מאמץ מדיני וצבאי משולב.
And this morning, a barrage of 6 or 7 missiles were launched from Iran in 4 waves. Millions of Israelis were forced to shelter all over the country. There were no reports of injuries, and several of the impacts were reported in open areas. But one impact was next to a power station in southern Israel. Outages were reported in nearby towns. The Israel Electric Corporation said the impact was near a strategic infrastructure facility, and teams are on the ground making repairs. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that after the U.S. attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities, Israel is close to meeting its war goals in Iran. Only hours after the U.S. attack on Iran, Netanyahu went to the highly symbolic Western Wall in Jerusalem's Old City, where he placed a note in the crack saying a person that rises up as a lion lifts himself up. Later, Netanyahu said he knew about the U.S. strikes on Iran at least 24 hours in advance of the attack. And that's all for this update on the hour. Please follow us for more every hour on the hour, the only English news delivering live updates around the clock.